One of the most challenging aspects of building a home gym that you love is being able to buy stuff that you know that you're going to like and you're happy you invested the money in. The problem with most good home gym equipment is there's no place to go try it out. Even if you live in a major metropolitan area like I do, it's just impossible to go try all of the different brands and options that are available. So that leaves you to rely on reviews online and YouTube channels like mine. Unfortunately, what you see on most of those places is you see a quick unboxing, they look at it for 5 minutes and they go, hey, I like this, I don't like this, and really rarely do you ever see somebody say, I don't like something. So you're left in the dark and you're spending $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on something that you really don't know if you're gonna like or not until you get it. So today, I'm sitting on my new Hydrow that Hydrow was nice enough to send to me. And I want to give you a detailed first impressions and overview so that if you're considering buying a Hydrow, you kind of see the good, the bad, the stuff I like, the stuff I don't like, and as much of a detailed walkthrough of this rowing machine as you would get if you were able to find it and try it out in a store. So let's get going. Hey everybody, it's Tim, head gym nerd here at GymCrafter.com, the website that I built to help ordinary folks like you and I build home and garage gyms that we absolutely love. And today I'm coming at you with an unboxing and first impressions video. And for those of you unfamiliar with how I do things here at GymCrafter.com, step one, subscribe to the channel so that you are. Check out the website at GymCrafter.com. I've got tons of information to help you build your home and garage gym that you're gonna love. But the way that I do things is a little different than most other YouTube channels. And that is, most places they'll get something, they'll unbox it, they'll look at it for 5 minutes, and then they'll give you kind of a glossed over 5-minute overview. But for folks who are looking to spend this amount of money on a rower, you really want a detailed, in-depth look. Well, what I'm going to do today isn't a review. I haven't had enough time on the rower to actually do a review to let you know how I like it long term, to let you know how it's going to last, and you'll see that 4 to 6 months from now. My goal is to get about 500,000 meters rowed on this before I give you an actual review. But I've rowed enough meters on other rowers to be able to give you a pretty solid first impression. And since I am a really obsessively compulsive shopper, I like to look at every little detail. I'm going to show you all of the things on this rower that you would be likely to look at if you were in a store looking at it. So if you're considering buying a Hydrow Pro or the Wave, which is the smaller version, or the larger one with the bigger screen that they just released, that you have enough information to make an educated decision. And if you feel like this video has helped you, I definitely appreciate if you use the affiliate link below. That helps me get more rowers and get more time to make videos like this, and I really appreciate the support. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. But let's get to the overview of the Hydrow rower. Now I've got, like I said, about 22,000 meters, 20,000 meters rowed over 7 sessions on this. So I think I've had enough time to look at it and really come up with some things that are important to look at. And there's some things that I really like. There's some things that I think could probably be better. And there's a couple of things that I really don't like. First of all, we're gonna look at the rower itself. There's lots of differences out there in rowers and how they feel and how they work. So we're gonna go over the ergonomics of it. And then I wanna dive into the actual programming. One of the big things that determine whether or not you get something out of a cardio machine like this is the programming that comes with it. They're, one of the most popular rowers out there, the Concept 2, is really just a torture device in disguise. And a big part of that isn't because it's not a good rower. It's okay. If you've been to a CrossFit box, you probably used a Concept 2. But all they've got is this little tiny readout that just shows you strokes per minute and your split time. And honestly, unless you're really disciplined and really self-motivated, you're gonna stop using a rower like that in very few sessions. Once your motivation goes away and your discipline has to take over, it's really hard to continue using something like that unless you just really like that type of training. These units with programming like this, they go a long way towards ensuring your consistency, and the number one factor in whether or not you get the results that you're looking for from a cardio machine or really anything else exercise related is consistency. So I think that this deserves its own overview, and we're gonna dig pretty deep into what's in here, what I like, and this is where some of the things that I don't like are too. So we'll leave that till the end. Make sure you watch through the whole thing. But let's dig into the rower itself, and we're gonna kind of go end to end. And first of all, aesthetics. Aesthetically, this thing is beautiful. The Pro comes in the silver and gray color. The Wave, which is their smaller version, comes in I think 6 or 7 different colors. The fit and finish of the Hydrow is fantastic. It's well designed. The finish is applied really well. The packaging, I made an installation video, which I'll link up above. If you're thinking about getting one of these, it shows you exactly what you're in for and putting this together. It's packed probably better than any other cardio machine I've ever unwrapped before. So everything was really well done. It looks beautiful. The ergonomics are great. Part of the drawback is that I think some of the things that were designed on this were designed with the looks first and the function second. So let me start with one thing that kind of bugs me every time I come in. The on-off switch is located all the way under the front here. So if you don't have a lot of mobility, or like when I started rowing, I had about 25 more pounds on me than I do now. So doing that wasn't exactly in the cards for me. So I don't necessarily like where the power button is. I understand that it's hidden so you can't see it, but boy, it would be great if it was up here on the side where I could reach it. Another thing is that I really like is this is up high off the ground. So they've got some really nice looking feet on here. For a lot of folks, especially again, folks with mobility issues, you have trouble. Now the other rower that I have is a water rower and it's really low to the ground. You can buy a riser kit for it, but really just out of the box, I think that a rower should be easy to get on. And I really like that this is easy to get onto. It's, you know, I'm 6'6" and I'm sitting and my legs are pretty much flat. So it's really comfortable to get onto this. The feet pad, they're a little bit far apart, which I really like. Some rowers, and actually if you've rowed on the water, your feet can end up really close together. And the result of that is it can make everything feel really compact and squished up. And I like that these are spaced out far apart. I've got big old size 13 feet and I'm not even using the full extent of the foot pad. So it's got room on here for the smallest feet to pretty much the largest feet that you could have. One nitpick I have on these, as far as something I wish was different, is the way that the straps work. Is the straps tighten from the outside. So when you get on and you put your feet on here, you're reaching outside and you're trying to pull in across your legs. And unless you kind of spread your legs apart, it's uncomfortable to tighten these. And I know it's a little bit of a nitpick, but Hydrow, if you're out there, if you could change that from the inside, because when you're doing it from the inside, you can reach around, grab them, and then pull them out. And then when you're undoing your feet, it's real easy to just click the tabs from the outside. So if this isn't a deal breaker, it's not a big deal. But like I said, I want to try and be as detailed as possible. And all the things that I notice, I'm going to share with you. So little things like that. I love the foot pads. I love the spacing. I also like the angle. Sometimes the angle on the foot pads on a rower are a little bit too steep. And what happens is when people, especially if you're new to rowing, when you come forward to the catch position, what happens is if it's too far up, now these foot pads are designed to have your heels come up, but if this is too steep of an angle, it becomes a little bit uncomfortable for folks who don't have the ankle mobility to get up there. Now, as you row, that's going to improve. That's one of the nice things about rowing that I've noticed is it improves my ankle mobility quite a bit, but I appreciate that these are just a touch more leaned forward and it makes it more comfortable. Now, speaking of comfort, the seat. So the seat is the #1 most upgraded thing on any rower out there. If you look for rower upgrades on Amazon, the first like 17 pages are seat cushions. So what I would tell you is that no rower seat is super soft and comfortable and cushy, and this is no exception. It's not uncomfortable as far as how soft it is, but I can see some people wanting to add a pad to it. I don't necessarily feel the need to do that, but I also don't row long distances. The way I use my rower is I'll typically row anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, either as a cool down or a conditioning day. I'm not on here. I know a lot of people like to row for an hour or 2 hours. That's not me. If you like to row for long distances, then you may want to upgrade and buy a seat pad for this. The real issue I have with the seat is that when you're rowing, what you want to do is, I have a bad back. So I have a tricky back, we'll call it that. And one of the big hesitations for people buying a rowing machine that have back problems is, at first glance, you would think that the rowing motion is bad for your back. And when you come in and you see people hunched over, well, when you row properly, and the Hydrow really helps this with the programming, we'll get to that there, but when you row properly, you're really keeping a straight back sitting tall and you're just acting as a lever. Well, the way that you keep your back, especially your lower back, healthy is you want your pelvic tilt to kind of be a little bit back, like sticking your butt out a little bit. And A lot of rowers that I've been on, the seat is shaped so that it curves up in the front just a touch, and it really facilitates you keeping that hip angle. And one thing that I'm not a huge fan of on this seat is it's more of a flat seat. So I find myself mid-row kind of repositioning my butt a little bit so that I get that pelvic tilt correct so that my back can stay neutral. So that's something that I wish was a little bit different on this. Again, not a deal breaker, but it's just something that I noticed it's different than a lot of other rowers. And if I could get a seat that has a little bit of an upturn in the front, not a lot, just a touch, it's just enough to keep you in position, that would be great. But overall, the seat's really good. One thing that's wonderful about this is it is smooth. It is super smooth. Now, the water rower that I have, the rollers are exposed, so over time, dust and dirt gets in, it gets a little bit rough, so I find myself having to clean those off. And as I said before, I'm gonna do a 6-month review on this, and I may find the same thing on this, but the rollers here are enclosed, and I don't see you getting the same issues, especially since they're a little bit different type of roller, and they're mostly enclosed. So the smoothness of this is fantastic. I really enjoy using it. There's a little bit of left to right play in the seat. Nothing that you'll ever notice when you're rowing. I usually notice it because I'll get on sideways to put on my shoes, and then you kind of notice that it rocks a little bit in here. But outside of that, forward and backward motion is super smooth. One little nitpick, again, I'm gonna have a bunch of little nitpicks, is the stop. So at the front of your rowing motion here, the seat should stop, right? It shouldn't just go continually in. Well, the issue with this is, especially if you've got good mobility, when I come in and I'm really loosened up, I can actually hit the back of my ankle with the seat. Now it doesn't ram into it, it just touches it a little bit, but it is something that I noticed, and boy, if they had the stop maybe even a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch further back than it is, that's not gonna impede anybody's rowing stroke, but it's gonna keep the seat from hitting the back of your ankle. And again, it doesn't hit it, it's not an impact, it kind of touches a little bit and then comes out, but it's enough to be distracting. So it's something that I notice, especially on my 1/2-hour rows where I'm really getting loosened up and warmed up and I'm moving into a nice, long, powerful rowing stroke. That's something that I do notice. Moving forward, as far as the handle, this is one of my biggest areas of I wish it was better. The handle itself, I'm not a huge fan of, and for a few different reasons. Number one, this is very grippy, rubbery material. However, it makes my hands sweat more than any other rower that I've used. Usually there's kind of a pebbled texture, more of a harder plastic. The pebble gives you some grip, and I understand why they put this material on there, but it's a grippy rubber, and so it makes my hands sweat a little bit more than normal, but there's a bigger issue with that, and it's combined with another, probably one of my biggest, it's kind of a complaint. The return power on the Hydrow, in other words, how boom, if you can see that, it's really strong. It pulls this handle back. In my opinion, it should be about half the tension that it is, because it really pulls hard, and that makes a couple of things difficult. Number one, because it pulls hard and there's no hinging or anything in this handle, it's just a straight pull. So as you pull and you come back and you come in and you come up, the angle of this over a longer row starts to twist the handle. The pull of it starts to twist the handle in your hands. And what I've noticed is it does rub my hands a little bit. The first few times I used it, in fact, my hands were even a little bit sore when I was done. Now, as you use this and as you adjust, and again, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but why I do 6-month reviews, as you use this, your hands are going to get used to it. Just like I lift weights a lot and your hands develop calluses from the barbells that you use, and a barbell that's uncomfortable up front won't be uncomfortable down the road. And I imagine the same thing's going to happen here, but I would also imagine that there's a lot of people who don't necessarily want to build up calluses on their hands to row. So if I was to redesign the handle, I would change a few things. Number one, I would change the return strength on here. I'm going to show you 2 more reasons why. Number 2, I would put some type of a hinge here so that this moves freely and instead of always being pulled to the forward position like that. Number 3, I would probably angle these just a little bit differently, but that's a small thing. But what I would really do is I would change the shape of this. So one of the things I really like to do when I'm rowing is I like to row with one arm sometimes. Either in a cool down row or when you're taking like what they call an active rest. So there's some pauses in the workouts where you're just kind of resting. And what I like to do is I'll switch to a one arm and I'll come back and really keep it, and I'll work on my lats this way. One of the reasons I like rowing is because of lats. Well, this handle, I've got giant hands. It's darn near impossible to hold in the middle. And because of this return strength, it's constantly pulling it. And if I want to do it on the side, that return strength is pulling it. So if you like to row with one hand and you haven't had a rower like this, and you have had, for example, a water rower, which is a much thinner part here where it's real easy to just grab it, what I always thought would be cool is an accessory that would hook on the middle here that's just a single-handed handle so that you could row with one hand. A lot of you folks out there are like, what are you talking about? Why would you row with one hand? It's just something I like to do. I also like to do kind of twisting rows like that. I do a lot of strength training, and one of the reasons I like using a rower for my cardio is it activates 80% of the muscles in your body. So it continues to stimulate muscle growth on my off days from lifting. I really, really like that. It's helped me make a lot of progress in strength, and doing different motions like that are very helpful. And the way that the handle is designed and the strength of the return impedes that a little bit. Now, again, is that a deal breaker? Absolutely not. If this was the first rower I ever had, I wouldn't think about those things at all. I've rowed on a bunch of other rowers, and so it's kind of a comparison deal. And as far as something I wish was different, that's something that I wish was different. Everything else aesthetically, as far as the rower goes itself, it's a joy to row on. So of all of the rowers that I've used, it's the most comfortable. It fits my tall body the most. Ergonomically, it's really great. It's really smooth. The pull is extraordinarily smooth. It's got a magnetic resistance flywheel in it. And the cool thing is that it's fairly close to actual rowing on the water. Now, Hydrow's marketing, they really tout this as an on-water simulator. It's as close as you can get to rowing on the water as you can get without rowing on the water. And I would tell you that that's probably not true. I think that a water rower is much closer to what it feels like to rowing on water, because when you're on actual water, unless you're on glassy, smooth surface, there's going to be some choppiness, there's going to be some waves, there's just no comparison to the feel of an oar going through the water itself. And if you're trying to simulate rowing on the water, a water rower may be a better choice for you. However, so I'm not in my office trying to simulate rowing on the water. I want a smooth, comfortable rowing experience. And of all of the rowers that I've tried, this is by far the smoothest, the most comfortable, the easiest to use. It's really a joy to row on, and I moved my other rowers out of the way to do this overview. But when I come in here and I'm not trying to get meters in for reviews or overviews, this has become the rower that I sit on specifically for the comfort. It's easy for me to sit up tall. Like I said, I get a little nitpick about the seat, the smoothness of the seat, the length of the stride, the spacing of the foot pads, the smoothness of the pull. Also, what really does simulate rowing on the water is, when I talked about that Concept 2 rower, and one of the reasons people like the Concept 2 is that you can adjust the resistance, or what's called the drag, by sliding this little lever on the side. And folks who use the Concept 2 typically are like, I want to make it as hard as possible. Well, I don't want to make it as hard as possible. I just want to have a good workout, and depending on the type of workout I want, I don't want to have to consistently change. Now you can, I'm going to show you, you can change the drag on this. However, on the video that they have that shows you how to set the drag, I think they make some really good points. You want to set it at one point and leave it. The way that you increase the resistance on a rower is you push harder. It's one of my favorite things. If you want to make it harder, you just make it harder by pushing harder with your legs. If you want to make it easier, you don't push it harder with your legs. It's like dragging your hand through the water, right? So if you want to move your hand slowly through the water, there's very little resistance, it's very easy. The faster you want to push your hand through that water, the harder it is. And that's how rowing on a boat works, right? So as that oar goes through the water, if you're pulling easily, there's a lot less resistance. The harder you pull, the faster you try to go, the more resistance. This magnetic flywheel does an amazingly good job of simulating that. So if I want to step things up because the instructor says, hey, we're going to push hard for our 30 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever it is, you really can increase and decrease how hard the rowing is. And when I first got this, I was a little bit thrown off because you can increase and decrease the drag. And I don't think that that's something that you should really have to do. You know, some people are going to want to jack it up because they do want it to be as hard as possible, and that's great. I think the number in here is 104 that they recommend you keep it at. I've found that that's the perfect number to be at. It's easy enough to be easy. It's challenging enough to where I can make it really hard. And it really does simulate rowing on the water a whole lot better than a lot of other rowers are. So I've tried, like, for example, the Avron, and I've tried the Peloton rowers. And both of those rowers, you don't get that same experience. You just don't. Now, they've got other things, like Avron's a big video game type of a thing, which I'm not a fan of. But as far as simulating what it actually feels like to pull an oar through the water and to have that resistance change, I really, really like so far how this particular rower feels. If this handle was designed a little bit differently, boy, it'd be really my ideal rowing experience. So that's an overview of the hardware itself. A couple of real quick things. This does store on its end. There are wheels on the end, so if you want to, pull it out, you can flip the screen down and then store it on its end. This is pretty tall. I have a ceiling fan in here with normal standard. I believe these are 8-foot ceilings. I can't store this on its end because I can't get it up past the ceiling fan. So if you've got a ceiling fan, you're going to want to be aware of that. Also, while you can flip it up and get it out of the way, it's still a pretty big machine. It's not going to take up the length in your room. I've found, and I've helped thousands of people build home gyms, that the less setup you have to do to train, the more you're going to use the stuff you have to train with. And I would tell you, if you have the ability to find a place in your home to just set this up and leave it in place and set up, that's going to be ideal, because I really like coming in and just being able to jump on and row. If I had to, roll the mat out and pull it down, I probably would skip rowing some days. So I really like that it looks nice set up, but you can store it on its end. And I mentioned the mat. This is carpeted in here, so you don't really need a mat if it's carpeted. However, I like having the mat. So if you're ordering the rower and you're wondering whether or not to order the under rower mat, when you're rowing, the opportunity to take your hands off of the handle to wipe the sweat off of your face are minimal. And with this, again, with this return, you take your hand off, all of a sudden you're straining your wrist to keep it going. So you're not gonna get a lot of chance. So what I find is that I'm dripping sweat, especially on their harder conditioning rows. I'm just dripping sweat. So I like having the mat because it's easier to just clean up that sweat. If you're not a sweaty person like I am, it's a weird thing to say, you may not need the mat, but I like it for that reason. Now, if you're on a hard surface, I would advise having a mat. If you're on a tile floor, a hardwood floor, you definitely want a mat. Number one, it's going to reduce the vibrations. Not that there's a lot of vibrations, it's real smooth, but you're gonna reduce the vibrations. You're gonna reduce the machine walking around the floor and moving and changing places. Also, with a harder surface floor, what happens is dust doesn't have anywhere to settle in. And carpet, the dust kind of sticks to the carpet, right? And you vacuum it up and you're done. Well, with hardwood floors, if you're familiar, the dust kind of just, every time you go around, it flies up. Well, the mat, what that allows you to do is the dust from the hardwood floors isn't gonna get up into the internals of the machine, into the wheels and things as much. So hopefully that gives you some insight of whether or not to buy the under rower mat. And I think that's pretty much it for the ergonomics. Now let's talk about the screen. This is a 22-inch color touchscreen. The Hydrow Club comes with a smaller touchscreen monitor, and then they just released a new model. Don't quote me on this, I think it's called a Vista, I could be wrong, but it's got a really wide monitor. It's more of an immersive rowing experience. I like this size a lot. 22 inches is enough to see. Now, I'm not a big, let's just go row on the open water and look at all the scenery guy. I know some people are, so if you're hey, I wanna go row on the open water, I want to enjoy the scenery, go with the Pro or go with the new one with the wider screen. If you just need this to see the people and the programming and things like that, then the smaller monitor might be just fine for you. I've rowed on a 14-inch monitor for, like I said, almost 500,000 meters, and I've never thought to myself, hey, that should be bigger. Once I got this though, I really do appreciate it. Another really nice thing is some rowers, they go cheap on the monitor, and they definitely didn't do that with this. Not only is it a nice bright color screen, but the speakers face forward. And on a lot of rowers, the speakers are on the back and they're pretty much useless. So this is nice that you don't, now it can connect to a Bluetooth speaker, which is great. If you want to use Bluetooth headphones, you want to use a Bluetooth speaker, it can connect to those, and that's an awesome feature. But if you don't, and you just want to jump on, I personally don't like wearing headphones when I'm rowing. Again, back to the sweaty thing. These front-facing speakers, you can go nice and loud. Now, they don't have a lot of bass to them. They're just TV speakers. So if you really want to crank the music in it, you might want to use a Bluetooth speaker. But for the most part, this can stand on its own. Also, the volume adjustments right here on the side, which I enjoy. Kind of back to where I said I don't really like the location of the power button. This is real easy to adjust while you're rowing. You can just reach up and touch up and down. So that's the aesthetics and the ergonomics of the rower. Now, okay, so we're gonna dive into the programming here. And the first thing I wanna show you is just something that bugs me a little bit. When you come under here to turn it on, and we're gonna just do this live on the camera, you're gonna see that it's gonna hang on a second and then it's gonna come up to this Hydrow screen. Now, I'm not sure how it's gonna be this time, but what I've noticed is the startup time on this is a little bit slow. Not only does it take a while to get from this screen to the menu, but sometimes it has to relog onto my home network, and that can take a couple of minutes some days, and I have really strong signal strength up here, and right now you're getting a good impression of what I'm talking about. Sometimes it just sits on this screen for a while, and then see how it says waiting for network connection? I literally had this up and going before I filmed this video. So then it's waiting and then it's thinking. So just a little nitpick. And then also, it seems like every few days, I have to do a software update. So one little thing, Hydrow, if you could make those software updates happen in the background instead of making the user wait, that would be an ideal upgrade for this. A lot of other rowers I've used, all of these things have tons of updates, right? I've always said, can we go to like once every 2 weeks? You know, unless it's a security thing, do we really need to update every few days? But if you could just do the updates in the background, that solves the problem. Now, once it's on, it's gonna ask you to select a profile. One of the things I really like is that it offers different profiles. So if you're in a household, you can log different family members in. It doesn't cost you any extra for your membership. So that's a really nice thing to do. So I've got my GymCrafter profile. If you're already on a Hydrow or you join a Hydrow, I'm here, my logo's here, so feel free to check out my stats. I really do use this thing. You can see that I'm not fooling around. So once you select your profile, it's going to log into the home page. So let me get the camera focused now just on the screen itself for the home page so that I can walk you through some of the things that I like and then some of the things that I wish were different. Okay, so here's the screen that you're gonna come to when you turn on your Hydrow each day. And it's gonna have a few different things on this first screen, and you're gonna be able to page left and right. It's gonna have some featured stuff. And then one of the things that I really like is it's gonna have a recommended for you. So based on your past workouts and what you've done and what you've seen that you've liked, it's gonna recommend something that you might actually like going forward, which I really enjoy. I do like the depth of programming on this. I don't like having to do the same thing every day, and there's so much in this, as you'll see, that it's cool that they make these recommendations. You'll have another one that says like your last. So this will show you a workout that's similar to what you did before. There's also what are called collections. So you can select a single workout, or you can do collections. And the collections are nice because they're typically progressive workouts that start at a basic level and then work up over time as you do them. And that's kind of a neat thing. If you find an instructor that you like, you find a type of training that you like, it'll allow you to do that. And then there's usually another kind of featured where they're trying to show you other stuff that you can do. I am personally not a fan of this type of stuff. I'll give you a great example. As somebody who weight trains regularly, sorry guys, that's not weight training. That's aerobics with a tiny little weight in your hands, and while that's appropriate for some people based on your goals, if you want to do strength training, this isn't it. I'm sorry, Hydrow. That's not strength training. That's me. I understand other people will disagree, but just for my personal overview, not a great thing. But anyway, so this is the home page. You can scroll up, and as you can see, the touchscreen works really well, and it'll show you a lot of the collections. So beginner, advanced, there's some circuit training. Again, not a big fan of this type of stuff, but let me take a pause because I just kind of dumped on that stuff. A lot of people like this. You know, when I talk to folks about building home gyms, they're oftentimes very resistant to weight training. And what happens is weight training is the single best way to lose body fat and lose weight. I know a lot of people buy rowing machines and they buy treadmills and ellipticals because they think that just spending hours on a cardio machine is how you lose weight. And I'm sorry, but that's not how you lose weight. That's how you end up spending hours on a cardio machine. It's not sustainable. It's the reason why people yo-yo diet all the time. Strength training is the single best way to help your body burn more fat over time. And if this type of thing serves as an introduction to you, maybe you're not you're hesitant to start weight training, you've bought into the myth, if you're a female, that it's gonna make you big and bulky, which it's not. Trust me, guys spend their entire lives in the gym trying to get big and bulky and never do. If this is your intro and this is your gateway to strength training, then I wanna point out that this is an amazingly good thing to have. So if you're the type of person who has been resistant to that in the past, this is gonna be a great intro for you. It's important to include strength training with your cardio. You shouldn't be doing cardio 7 days a week. As fun as this rower is, that is again not how you lose weight. You should be doing 2 to 3 days of strength training and then 2 to 3 days of cardio at different intensities. That's it, guys. That's how you lose weight. You have to do a combination of both. So I know I'm kind of beating that dead horse a little bit, but if things like this are going to introduce you to it and you'll do that, but you won't pick up a barbell right now, I am all for this type of a thing. So different things, and that's one of the things that you're going to notice as we go through this. When I first turned this on, it was really overwhelming because there's so much that you can pick from. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing. Number one, like I said, it's kind of overwhelming, especially if you're a beginner. It's nice that they have some beginner collections. You can just select a collection and start from the beginning. There's a lot to this. So there's your collections up top. It's gonna start with your newer stuff. And then you've got different types of workouts. You can row live with people, which is something I haven't done yet. I may try that eventually. You can do different types, circuit training with weights and rowing. Drive is like really pushing hard. Sweat is kind of a moderate interval type of training. Breathe is more of a relaxing kind of a recovery type of row. So you can find a workout that you want. They've got yoga built in. They've got Pilates workouts built in. They've got mobility. You can go for distance. You can just row across different scenes. So as you can see, if you want to buy one thing that's going to do a lot for you and you don't have room in your house for a weight room or a rack and a barbell and things like that, and you just want to have one thing that does a lot for you, the Hydrow really offers a lot. Now, is this something that I'm personally going to use? I'm probably not going to use the stretching. I'm not looking to sit on this thing for an hour or 2 hours. I have my own mobility practice. So for me, I may not use a lot of those, but it's nice because different folks will use different things. So based on what you want out of your rower, there's enough in here to where no matter who you are and what your goals are, you're going to be able to find a combination of training modalities that are going to help you get the results that you want. I would recommend highly trying different ones. And when I do my 6-month review, I will have tried all of those so that I can give you a good solid review of those. Even though I might not continue to use them, I will try those for you and let you know. Here you've got those live workouts coming up. And here's something that at first I didn't like, but I really like it now. I am not a fan of Peloton. I'm just going to come out and just call them out, because when I was on the Peloton, it was much like a spin class. And for those of you who like spin classes, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be insulting. I don't need somebody screaming at me to motivate. In my opinion, if you have to have somebody scream at you and rah-rah cheerlead you the whole way through your workout, you're doing the wrong workout. Like, you should I enjoy rowing. You should enjoy the workout itself. And yes, the instructor can be motivating, but so I was hesitant because I really thought that all of these people were just different people who were going to scream at me, and they're not. There are a few. So if you like that spin class feeling, there are instructors here who will give you that experience. But I don't like that experience. And what I like is, I like some of the ones who they talk about rowing, they talk about their experiences, they talk about fitness. And what I really enjoy is some of these instructors so far, what they'll do is they'll consistently give you reminders on your rowing form. And what I found is that while I don't hurt my back on the rower, I have to consistently remind myself to sit up straight, to sit tall, to pull with the lever of my torso. There's all kinds of rowing cues. And some of these instructors are really, really, really good at keeping you on point as far as your form does. And I can tell you that the difference in a row, even a 15-minute row with good proper form and a 15-minute row with terrible form, is night and day. So if you want to get the most out of your rower in the shortest amount of time, some of these instructors are really, really good. So the neat thing is, and I'll show you on the next page, you can actually, once you find some of these instructors that you like, you can actually just search for workouts that are just with them, which I really, really enjoy. And when you get an instructor or two that you like, what I've noticed is the time tends to go much quicker. It's really a nice option. Down here, you're going to have some tutorials. I mentioned the setting the drag, how to row. So again, if you're just brand new, there are tons of videos in here that will show you how to row. And that's something that you're missing on a lot of other rowers. A lot of other rowers are like, get on and row, good luck. And that's not the case with this. So if you're new to rowing, a rower like this with this type of programming is going to be really beneficial to you. So that's the homepage. That's your options on the homepage. You've also got, which I think is really cool up here, and this is on most pages, it allows you a place to actually give them feedback. If you want to give me feedback, that's my email address, tim@gymcrafter.com. Definitely shoot me an email if you have any questions I can answer for you. They'll actually take your feedback, and they're looking to constantly change and upgrade the experience so that it's better for you. It's one of the reasons for all those updates I was talking about. So I do like that as well. So let's go next to the library page. And the library page is where you can get overwhelmed, but let me walk you through what's here. This is going to be all of the possible programs that you can do. And there is just an unlimited amount of programs. So how do you figure out what you want to do? Up at the top, you're gonna be able to sort. So the first thing I always do is I always sort by how long I want to row. If you have a coach that you like, you're going to be able to pick. The category is another one that I do. Do you want a recovery row? Do you want kind of an interval row? Or do you want something that pushes you hard? The type is going to be, it is something else that I really like. Beginner, intermediate, advanced. It allows me to pick kind of something that's suitable to my skill level. The collections are simply what I mentioned at the beginning for different fitness goals. And if you don't want to have to pick an independent program each day, you can do these collections and they'll walk you through beginning to end. Location is kind of cool if you like exercising in different places. Music-wise, you can kind of pick what type of music. Down at the bottom, you've got your progress. That's going to tell you how much you've done. So there you can see I really have used it. I've rowed 7 different times across 3 weeks. I've rowed 26,000 meters at this point. And then at the bottom, you can see who you've trained with, how long you've trained, how many meters each one was. Let's go in and we're going to pull up an actual workout. Now, I'm not actually going to row, but I kind of want to show you my big I wish about this. So let's just pick a conditioning row and we'll start going now. Once you pick something, you're going to be able to connect a Bluetooth speaker. You can connect to a heart rate monitor, which for folks who use them, this is really important to you. I don't. You can pick the music genre, so even though it says that it's a pop, you can actually change the genre, but again, you know, it is what it is. So typically what you're going to do is you're going to hear them talking more than you're actually going to hear. The music is just a very low-level background thing. Now you can select in the sound and drag settings, you can select only music if you like the music. The problem is that then you can't hear the instructions. So only music to me is kind of worthless. Normal mix is typically what I do, or you can do more athlete or only athlete and then put your own music on in the background, but I've tried that and then you can't hear them talking. So again, we'll get to that in a second. Let's say that I'm good with all of the sound settings. I just touch outside, just touch outside, and then I can click row. So here we're gonna start, and here's where we're gonna get into my biggest complaint about the Hydrow. So Hydrow, if you're watching, and I hope that you are, this is going to be an easy fix for you. It's something that I think is important. And before I start the row, most of what's done in the Hydrow, you can tell has been designed by people who row. They're experienced, and there's a lot of benefits to that. The ergonomics of the machine come from that. The interactive programming comes from that. The ability to coach you through a workout that's effective but not overtaxing. There's so many good things that come from, clearly the people at this company know about rowing. They know about what it takes to row and how to simulate an on-the-water experience. All of that's great. The bad thing about that is they're too close to things and they're not thinking about this from the perspective of somebody who isn't a rower on the water. So let me show you what I mean. So we're gonna start here. Let me turn it down a little bit. When she starts, what she's gonna do is she's gonna tell you what type of row that you're gonna be doing. And then what she's gonna do is she's gonna point out some of the stuff on the bottom of the screen. And what you'll see along the screen, here's your community setting. And across the bottom, you're gonna see your time remaining in the section. So this is gonna be a countdown to the start of the row as she tells you. And then what all the instructors are gonna do is they're gonna point out your split time and your S/M. S/M is how many strokes per minute. And your split time is how fast you're going across for 500 meters. And the lower that split time, the faster you're going. Those numbers mean nothing to me. They don't help me. I'm not an experienced rower. And what I find myself doing is I find myself staring at these numbers, trying to figure out how to get my numbers to hit those. And then what you do is so the way that you manipulate these 2 strokes per minute is how fast. Now, you can try and match what she's doing, right? And she's rowing at the strokes per minute that she wants you to row. Sometimes I fall out of sync. And when I'm out of sync, then I don't know if my strokes per minute are right. And then I have to either pause or stop so that I can catch up and re-catch where she is. So if I'm going, hey, out to in, oh, I'm off, now I've got to stop. And so it's interesting. So I've got a little bit of OCD, so I really like to be synced up with them, and I think that that's valuable. And when you get into the workout and you get synced up, it's actually pretty enjoyable. The second problem with that is, especially during interval training like this, as she calls out, hey, we're gonna change pace. We're gonna go up from 18 strokes per minute to 20, or we're gonna go to 24 or 26 or whatever it is. If you don't catch that, either because you've got the music turned up too loud or you're only listening to music, then you don't really know when she's gonna change, or you have to watch this clock. That she goes, in 30 seconds, we're gonna do this. So now I've got to remember for 30 seconds that they're gonna change. And some of the instructors forget to tell you that they're gonna change. And all of a sudden, you're rowing and then they're speeding up and now you're out of sync. It is really, really hard for me as a beginner on this machine, not a beginning rower, but somebody who's just started using this machine, to really keep up with the instructor and stay in sync with where I'm supposed to be. Now, does it matter in the long run? No, because you can catch up and it's not a huge deal if you're exactly in sync. So, but strokes per minute is one. The split time is controlled by how hard you push with your legs. And other than this number going up and down, there's really no feedback for your split time. There's really no feedback for how hard you're rowing and the power that you're putting in. And so what happens is, like here I'm in 4,000th place because I'm not going, but I find myself in like 1,000th place all the time. And I've noticed now that if I push harder with my legs, I can move up. But for me, I don't know where this is supposed to be. They never tell you how hard you should be pushing. And I understand that you can push harder if you want to make things harder on yourself, but when you're talking about guiding people through a workout, having some type of a target here would be nice. So what's the solution? If you look at, for example, the Ergotta rower, the Ergotta doesn't really have instructors like this, but it has a graphical representation, and there's a few ways that you could do it. What I would like to see is, I would like to see some type of a graphical representation of where I am within the row. So this is a 15-minute row, so 0 minutes to 15 minutes and where I am, and then up and down where those different zones are gonna be, and then a little label that says, hey, your little boat, your little dot is getting close to the next up, your little dot's getting next to a rest, and see that up and down. So that would be at minimum what I'd like to see, so that I could see graphically, because if I'm trying to sync up with the person rowing and I keep looking down here to check my numbers and my strokes per minute, and she said I'm supposed to be at 24 and I'm at 22, and what, like it's taking me out of the row, right? It's taking me out of getting the most out of it. So having some type of a representation there. Now, what Averon does really well is they've actually got this little thing that's flying across the screen, and the harder you push for your split, the higher that dot goes. And then the less you push, the lower that dot goes. And what they do is they give you little targets on the screen and they go, hey, this one you should be up here. So you can push with your legs harder so that the thing goes up to the higher goal. And then as you get easier, so if you were to combine those two things, have some type of a gauge up and down here visually, so that you go, hey, in this section of the row you want to be up here, in this section of the row you want to be down here. And then also a progress meter that shows what strokes per minute you are at now, and then what's coming, so that you can hit those different changes. I think that that would make this really the absolutely ideal interactive programming. Now, as I said at the beginning of the review, or this unboxing first impressions, this is my first impression. I'm pretty sure that as I use this over the next 500,000 meters, that I'm gonna get very used to the way that Hydrow does this programming. My concern is that if you're buying a rower for the first time, and really if you buy right, you're only gonna buy one rower in your life. If you're doing that and you're just starting out, this type of a readout makes it harder. Look, if you're an experienced rower and you rowed crew in college, you know what these things are. Like, in fact, you don't even need to look. You know what 24 strokes per minute feels like. I don't know what 24 strokes per minute feels. I have no idea what that feels like. So I rely on either matching her pace or looking at this number. And again, it's very distracting. So the one thing that I would change, if I could at all, and the one thing I really don't like about the Hydrow is that particular aspect of the programming. So I know that was a long explanation. It's hard for me to explain it without having a bunch of rowers side by side to show you. If we could change that one thing, Hydrow, I think you'd have just a hit, and I think you'd have more people getting more out of their workouts. It's going to be easier to follow along with the instructors. That's the one thing that I wish was different. Outside of that, overall, I've been really impressed. Like I said, when I come in and I have several rowers to pick from at this point, this is what I really like. Now, one last thing, just another thing for Hydrow, maybe I'm just missing it. You get all these cool badges. You get badges for weekly streaks, you get badges for rowing in different places, you get badges for different types of workouts, and it's really cool. It kind of gamifies it and it gives you something to work towards. I can't find out where to find my badges. I can't figure, if any of you guys out there have a Hydrow and you can tell me where to find that, please let me know, because I don't know where to see what badges I've earned yet and what ones I don't have. It would be cool to have, kind of like in a video game system, a page that I could go to that not only shows what badges I have, but little grayed out areas of what badges I could earn. And if I could look at that and go, oh, I'm one row away from this, or hey, I haven't rowed in New Zealand yet, or it gives me a little bit more motivation. So I think that's a feature in there that you already have. Either I can't find it and it's not there, or I can't find it and it's hard to find, but either way, I think that should be on your homepage to show you, or at least a link to it on your homepage so that you can see what it is. All right, there you have it. About as detailed of an overview as I can give you on the Hydrow rower. Now, if you're not familiar with the GymCrafter channel, this is what I do. I try and go as deep as I can. When we come back with the 6-month review, I'm gonna give you just as detailed a review and let you know if I've gotten used to any of those programming things or how things have held up, if I still have the same issues with the handle, all that kind of fun stuff. If you like detailed reviews like this, if you like detailed information on how to build a home gym, how to outfit your house with fitness equipment, drop a subscribe, hit the like button. I really appreciate that, as this is how I do things. So if you've got any additional questions that I didn't answer, please email me at tim@gymcrafter.com or drop a comment down below. I answer all of the comments myself. I answer every single email that I get. I do this because I want to help you guys get stuff that you really like and that you'll actually use. So if you don't like it, you're not going to use it. And that's one of the big reasons why I kind of bagged on Concept 2s quite a bit. I know a lot of the CrossFit folks out there really like them, but as far as the type of rower that becomes a clothes rack faster than any other one does, the Concept 2 is it. So I know more people who have bought that on the recommendation of CrossFitters and absolutely hate using it. Something like this with the interactive programming I showed you, with the much smoother operation, is going to be much more enjoyable for a lot of people. Look, there's a lot of options for rowers out there. I'm not prepared yet to say that this is the best one or the second best one, but it's a pretty good option. So hopefully that helps you out. And until the next video, I'm Tim with GymCrafter.